Okay, so in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to import data from an Excel spreadsheet into your sound design project file. You can do this for pretty much any of the data types, and they all work pretty much the same way. So once you've seen it for one, hopefully you should kind of understand the mentality behind how it works. In essence, it will recognize the headings, the column headings from a table that you paste into your clipboard from Excel, and it will use the headings in the columns to identify what data you're trying to bring into it. So things like reference, for example, it'll recognize that as the noise source reference in this case, or if you had the octave band center frequencies in the headings of your table, then it would recognize those as well. So in order to make sure that it can identify things correctly, you can also copy the headings that it will recognize into the clipboard first and paste them into Excel to organize your data. So let's just do that for a noise source. So I've opened up the noise sources window here. If we right click anywhere, then it will give us the opportunity of writing the headers into the clipboard basically. So if we take a general one first of all, and I'm just going to flick across to my Excel spreadsheet and just do paste. So now you can see it's pasted in there: source, reference, description, source type, data type, acoustic index, and data source, which are the fields that you've got in your noise source dialog box. What you can see as well is that I've got the column helpers switched on. The settings for that is inside the program settings dialog box. They are on by default, and that shows me what the program is expecting to find in that column. So for example, under source type, if it sees env, it will recognize that it's an environmental source. If it sees build, it will recognize it's the building services. With data type, if it sees LW, it will recognize that that's sound power, and if it sees LP, it will recognize sound pressure, etc. Okay, so if we go back to the noise sources dialog, if we had a building services noise source, we could also put those headings in as well. So if I just paste those ones in, so that gives us things like width, length, height, distance of measurement, and air volume and models. So those are some options that were specific for building services type noise sources. And then the last headings we need to put in are the octave band headings. So let's put in octave band, for example, and just paste those in. So now we've got all the kind of the headings here that that the program will recognize. So I've already got some noise sources here that I've organized. I've put in the headings there that it will recognize. So if I literally just copy those into my clipboard by selecting the entire table without any of the kind of the options, if you have got those on your table, just select the column headings on their own. Do copy by Control C or right clicking and selecting copy, and then if you go to sound design, right click and just do import clipboard data as sources, it will then pull all the data out of the clipboard that it recognizes and show you this, so that you can have a look through before it actually creates noise sources for those things. So you can see there now we've got source reference, source description, source type, width, length and height, and their volume for the sources. I also put in some models and whether they're sound power, sound pressure, the acoustic index, the data source, and also then the octave band data. So if we just click import data, you can see now it's basically brought those in. So those are ready for us to use. Like I said, all of the data stores have that type of functionality. The only one that's slightly different is the internal receivers import, and the reason is because it gives you the option of carrying out calculations on the import. So in addition to the kind of the general headers, you can specify things like room shape and the room geometry. Then you can put in a room acoustics calculation type. So if I go back to my spreadsheet, I've already pasted those headings in there, which you can see there. It also then, the helper for the room acoustics count type is abs and rev, And what that means is if you put rev and then put octave band data, it will take those as reverberation times and then calculate the alpha bar based on the room geometry that you've put in. And if you put in abs, it will take those as absorption coefficients and then calculate the reverberation time based on the room geometry that you've put in. So if we just copy those in, again, it will give you the option of validating the data before it goes in, so you can do import. The other thing that you may have noticed there is that in the Excel spreadsheet I've got criteria type and room type. If I had the criteria type object loaded in that's named there and I had the room type, then it would basically pick that out of the internal criteria and allocate those to the room. So when you're importing your rooms, you can also set up the criteria for them as well. So that's pretty much it for how to import data into the general kind of data stores. The lookup tables work in a similar way as does the internal criteria, but I'll run through those separately.